Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Balls in Your Face Marketing. Are you curious about Facebook advertising? Well, I just so happen to have the founder of Black Box Social Media, Facebook mastermind guru, has over a decade's worth of experience. He is the Facebook ads manager for the who's who of is on Facebook, celebrities like Russell Brunson, just to name one. He has spoken at Dan Kennedy's event. This man knows of what he speaks. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Curt Maly.
Hola. Hey.
Curt, how you doing, my friend?
Amazing. Good here to be here, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me wear my professional dress today. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We are not a high dress affair at all. You look lovely, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I forgot to mention right off the top there, let's jump right into that. You were sued by Facebook. What the hell?
That is true. I was kicked off Facebook for 888 days, so almost 2.5 years. And that was all because I was running a high-end agency at that time where we had 14 employees running the who's at traffic here in downtown Austin, Texas. And then June 2nd, 2015 at 4:12 in the afternoon, I remember that day very well. Essentially, I was sent a cease and desist order from Facebook that said there are 13 points that I must respond back to them within 12 hours, that an employee that I was working with gave us confidential proprietary information. And then for the next 2.5 years, for the next year and a half, I was personally banned from Facebook. I could not have any employees to touch Facebook. I could not employ any third-party tools to touch Facebook, and I cannot touch any Facebook-owned property. That is Facebook, that is Instagram, that is WhatsApp. And at the time I was single, so if you want to get into most single dating sites, you must use your Facebook login. And since I was the Facebook guru with the Facebook agency with no Facebook login, it made it a very interesting time. Whoa. But as of October 2017, we are back with a signed letter of seal of approval. And that is the shortest version of the story that I can give you, sir, but I'm willing to answer any questions around it. Lots of people know me about this.
That's it. Well, I mean, this is kind of exciting that you're allowed to even talk about it. I'm surprised that there's no, we'll let you back on, but you can't say squat. I'm surprised they didn't give you that letter.
There's no case precedent what we're talking about. The lawyer that I talked with directly over at Facebook is not a Facebook lawyer. They're actually a lawyer of a very large international law firm, the same people who were taking care of the Russian investigation, the same people who take care of lots of the propaganda stuff that's going on. These are big individuals and a big partner. And essentially, there's no case precedent. The one thing that the lawyer said from their side, obviously a very smart individual, said, Curt, we can't restrict your free speech. However, there's a couple of conditions that they could judge me on. And now today, as I have a signed letter that basically says this, Julian, there's lots of tips and tricks that you can use on Facebook. And violating the terms of use of Facebook, it's not a felony. It's not against the law. You just violated their bylaws, which doesn't really mean anything. Well, Facebook, in my signed letter to get back on, I had to say that, yes, I'm over 18 years old. I'm not represented by this law firm. I live in the United States, a couple of other provisions, but one of them was, since there is no financial compensation tied to violations of terms of use, I agreed to add to my personal terms of use anytime that I would violate anything. It is a $40,000 fine payable within 10 days, and I only know when I violated their terms of use when they send me an invoice. So I will not talk about that anything that will violate the terms of use because I don't, but I don't know what terms of use that means. I don't know if it's a 20% image in an ad. I haven't got a bill yet. I'm going to hope that I'm doing the right thing, which I believe that I am.
Wow. So that means, oh man, that's a lot of pressure though to keep up on any kind of changes to the policies and stuff like that. Like that's got to be.
Well, as you know, we are in a mastermind where I answer lots of questions, and some people are like, specifically, how do I get around? Can't answer any of those questions. I will show you how to do it the right way, but how do you get around? That definitely requires a not reply from Curt. So
right, gotcha. Crazy stuff. So I know you're also really big on Facebook video. So why don't you tell me a bit about that and what you're doing with that and how you're using it and how that's been good for you and worked for you?
Absolutely. I'm going to tie in a couple of different stories kind of all into one. What ends up happening is that during our lawsuit, as we're going through it, I can't touch Facebook. I can't have any employees. But what happens is I'm kind of known as a Facebook guru because I'm speaking on stage. I have these digital programs. Well, essentially what I ended up doing is I sold my business to my brother, who's at an ad agency for the last 13 years. So instantaneously, he can have 13 employees, coach from the sidelines, and we can still work with some really big name clients because I'm not pushing the buttons. We have employees who are pushing the buttons. They're not my employees, they're his employees. And well, that's kind of the whole way that it works. So what happens is that now is instead of me standing on stage saying, hey, I'm taking a bunch of clients, I said, hey, look, here's what I'm working on the sideline. And Julian, you know this because you've been doing this for a while, is now what I was able to do is stand by the sidelines and really focus on some specific clients, dive and swim through the data, find out like, hey, where's sweet spots that no one's looking. Well, what ends up happening, we end up start doing some Facebook Lives. And we started doing these, a couple of years ago when they came out, really as soon as they started coming out, but we started looking at video in a unique way. And Julian, what ends up happening is I start working with this group, helping hurting moms. And what essentially, Hurting Moms Mending Hearts, I always get the name wrong, we've been working with for years. Now, essentially so if people want to look this up as a case study, it's Hurting Moms Mending Hearts as I'm looking at this. What ends up happening is this is a group that helps moms whose kids are addicted, strung out, many times runaways on the streets, and the moms feel guilty, alone, and ashamed. No one's going to like a fan page that says, hey, my kids are strung out on the street, I'm guilty and alone and ashamed. So they had 100 fans of the fan page, 3 or 4 email addresses when they came to me, and I said, let's do something different. What happens is the actual story. Fascinated on stories because Facebook that's what they're looking for. So what happens is I tell these, I like to lovingly say these church ladies, their story goes like this. They held a support group 15 years ago, and 15 years later, one of the women in the support group walks up to this person, her name is Kathy, and says, oh my God, Kathy, you changed my life. This group just changed my life. So what this group decided to do was, hey, let's sell self-help books. Well, Julian, I don't know if you've ever had any friends or family involved in the space where maybe they have a loved one who has an addiction, they've gone through addiction. Moms won't buy a $15 self-help book, but they will pay $45,000 to $60,000 to get someone to go through rehab each and every single time. So we decided to do, well, wait a minute, if we can tell a really good story, kind of like I'm attempting to do right now that you're listening to, right? If we can tell a good story, what we're going to do is we're going to find moms who literally say, oh my goodness, I was looking for a group like this. And what's going to happen is we're going to give moms the opportunity to buy the book or join an online support group, or what moms do best is hurting. If you believe that you can help moms who are in this situation, maybe you can start an online group. So now we're starting an online ecosystem. So what ends up happening is back in September 2016, 2016. Wow, it's been 2 years. Wow. Essentially what happens is this, is I have these church ladies record a 10-minute Facebook Live. And when they do the 10-minute Facebook Live, they follow a sequence very similar to an infomercial. I show people how to do this. That video is still running today for $10 to $35 a day, depending on what their budget is. It's now received millions of views, but it's not about the millions of views. I literally woke up in an aha moment when I looked at their stats over the course of really the first couple of months, and I looked and I'm like, well, wait a minute. And I've made speeches about this on stage now. There's a huge aha moment, which was, let's just say the average website click is, let's just say it's 50 cents. Let's just say. Someone's going to click on a website, and they are going to go to a landing page, and they may stay there maybe 30 seconds. Maybe. But with these church ladies, they got people to watch them for 10 minutes for 35 cents. So now what happened is we saw that this video consumption was 10 minutes for 35 cents. And literally what these people were saying in the comments were, I was praying to God for something like this. The video came up. I watched the video on my phone for 10 minutes. And I can't believe, and I wanted more information. And now what we do is we retarget for $1 a day. It has created a revolution for clients. We have helped people become New York Times bestselling authors by 10-minute Facebook Lives. We are running movies, 60-minute full-length movies inside where people watch the entire thing, $3. So video consumption right now is killing it for us. Top of funnel, middle of funnel. It's not about clicks. It's all about doing the whole story I just told took about 5 or 6 minutes.
Well, I mean, you're touching on a couple of points there. One is that, I mean, I've seen the stat that it's 80% of the content that people consume on the web right now is video. And two, the other thing that, I mean, I'm certainly big on is this is the importance and the value of stories. I mean, they've always been really, I mean, this is the story of mankind. We've always told stories. This is how we've always kind of communicated. All of everything in our lives revolves around stories, and we all tell them back and forth today. Hey, what happened to me today? You know what, this guy came up to me, he did this and that, right? I mean, we're constantly telling stories. We are, that's what we are as a species. And I find it really kind of fascinating how nobody anymore people just don't have the patience for or even want to see that perfectly curated, lovely, polished ad anymore. They're not interested in that. They want authenticity. I say it all the time on the show. We have entered into an economy of authenticity. And if you are being yourself, if you're being real and you have a compelling story, and everybody has a compelling story. You tell it properly, people will sit down and watch. And this show actually is evidence of that too. Like, I've been shocked that, you know, I've always said that, like, I don't put a big structure. I don't have like a big, like, you know, here's my questions, interviews. I want it to be a conversation. And why? Because a conversation is a journey. And if it's a good conversation, if it's a good journey, people come along for the ride. And sure enough, people have been watching this show for minutes, like way longer than what I would expect for long form.
So I want to comment on this, if you don't mind, for just a minute, because short form, long form, it's interesting. We have this client that I've mentioned on some of our mastermind calls, is a client from Shark Tank. And recently they've run into 2 or 3 other people who are like, hey, we will audit your account for free. And our client's like, okay. And they start to audit the account and they don't understand the overall strategies. And what they do is they go by this old belief system. And it's really quite amazing, because essentially what starts to happen is this. People are like, you know, the most money that these guys, meaning us, spend on an ad is a video that's 3 minutes. They've spent over $30,000 and it's your least performing ad. Well, yeah, because that's the introduction ad. That's the ad that we start top of funnel, that we raise our hand. People get to know us. They get to know us for 3 minutes for pennies. And that has been attributed to huge sales. And the other thing starts coming into, and I'll step back in the video in just a second, is the other thing they come into is they're like, and you know this from our group, they're like, they're targeting way too wide. Facebook's not smart enough, and they should really target in smaller pools, because that's where we found the best stats. And I smashed my head against the desk. The reason is because I've worked with some of the world's greatest copywriters, some of the world's greatest storytellers. Now some of them are my friends, and I love to hear their stories, because like people tell us these certain hooks or write these one-line sentences or want to keep the copy really short. Julian, I want a long conversation with you. I don't want a short, idiotic conversation. I don't want stupid clients who don't read. I want people who are going to consume stuff. So what happens is there's all these science tricks, but Facebook has an algorithm with 150,000 plus different equations. So like this one weird trick to get people to click doesn't really matter anymore. What we do is we use this 10,000-year-old technique of building a conversation and telling a story, which basically happens. Here's the science. 3 years ago, Zuckerberg posted on his personal page, here's how our video algorithm works. 3 years ago, almost 4 by this point, by the way. And it shows 5 clips. I have this picture or this video. It shows 5 clips. Each video is under 3 seconds long. Within half a second to a second, there's 2 pieces of code that show up in the video like this. So for example, it's a mountain bike, unicycle riding down the mountain. And within half a second, Facebook will identify man, mountain bike, outside, unicycle, going down mountain, race. Julian likes unicycles going down the mountain. Show this in his suggested feed. So if Facebook figures that out almost 4 years ago, why would I not run videos that are 5, 7 minutes long? People get to know us. We build rapport. And then people get to buy because they get to know us, and Facebook's figuring that out. I don't have to think of my 30 different ads that help this one weird hook. We just do what we're doing right now and build a conversation, have a conversation, introduce people to our products and services for pennies, and people are buying at a rate that is, astronomically different than just running ads directly to a sales page.
Yeah. No, my sense is this, and I've heard this adage all the time, like your video should be just like under 90 seconds, you know, and what I think it is I kind of get that it's like you want that short video maybe to just introduce yourself so that people, like, that's maybe what they have. Sure, they, you know, when people are scanning through all kinds of videos and posts and all kinds of stuff, sure, their attention span is shorter, but they see you and they get introduced to you and they like you, they will investigate further. And I've seen this, like, anecdotally at least, time and time again, that as long as you have attracted their attention, people are absolutely willing to give you the time.
I mean, the other thing is too, is like, I agree with you, but on the other side of it, I'm running 90-minute movies inside running to mobile suggested video. And when I do this, I'm looking at it and I'm like, it's a cold audience. That was just $4 for someone to watch the entire movie.
Wow. On
their phone. I'm just going to go ahead and retarget that, because the old model that, by the way, when I say old model, this is a model that worked like a year and a half ago. It's a documentary film series, right? They've been around for almost 100 years. Yeah. And what they would do is they get leads for $3 or $4, even 50 cents. And then they would send them to these movies and they'd say, watch video 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to lead up to this big movie release. And then, hey, you can buy the movie, which is great. Or all that process sounds like, you know, email, leads, stuff like that. Well, you can get somebody to consume the entire movie for $4. Now you start taking a look at it where it's like, wait a minute, now you can just retarget. Like, literally, we can take this video right here, run it inside of Facebook, cold market, split test it with $10 in split testing and find out, oh, these 4 segments of people end up watching on average for 4 or 5 minutes. It only costs you 50 cents top of funnel to have someone watch us for 20 minutes. Run that video top of funnel. You're not going to get any clicks, but oh my goodness, that's the first conversation that people start off with. So there's one thing that you said that I want to touch on. A friend of mine's in the infomercial business. He has been for over 30 years. I just did an infomercial with him. Like, he asked me to come over and play a cop, and my girlfriend was getting pulled over. What he does, he has an e-commerce product for breast mint. What he does is he does 15 to 30-second videos top of funnel to get the laugh. A woman pulls over a cop and gives him breathalyzer. Huh? And it's kind of like, what? What the heck was that? And if you watch the full joke, then they retarget with a 3-minute video on how the breath mints work. So very along the line that you do. So I'm talking about, I like to start with short videos, not 10 seconds, but 15, 30-second top of funnel. But if we're talking coaching, hiring products, not just in e-commerce, I'll start stuff. One of my best videos is an 8-minute long interview that I did with this infomercial expert. It's 30 cents to have someone watch all 8 minutes, and then I retarget from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been doing a lot more on LinkedIn, and so again, with these interviews, they're usually anywhere between sort of 30 minutes an hour, and then I'll just cut, segment them down, because LinkedIn only allows you to go up to 10 minutes. But usually, there's so much great content, there's so much like good material, and I'm like, well, I don't want to, miss that. I usually come very close to using up that 10 minutes. Now, I don't get the data on LinkedIn that you can get on Facebook in terms of like how many minutes viewed. But what I can clearly tell from the comments themselves is people will start commenting on something that the person said at the very end of it. So I know people are watching it straight through to the end. So yeah.
So a couple of things on this. One of my favorite tricks, I'm going to work on this as soon as I hang up here, is essentially this. Is what I do is I started looking at this video, and I've been teaching this video really for 18 months, to where I'm like, hey, look, I have a little offer that shows people how to go through this whole Facebook Live or longer videos. And I'm always thinking, like, how can I practice more of what I preach, right? I'm never one of those people that teach something that I don't do. And I'm like, well, I got a ton of content like this. Like, I did all these like bot classes, I did all these master classes, and I did the webinars to get people there. What about if I just cut off the price of the webinar, cut them down to 10-minute chunks? What about if I just took all of these other training videos I had that are an hour long, cut them down to 10-minute chunks as previews? And what about if I just put that, what I like to call the hot 7 audience, or hot 30, where I retarget everybody in every conceivable way within a 7-day period or a 30-day period, so it gives us a pool of people. So just imagine I'm targeting, website clicks, I'm targeting, leads, opt-ins, I guess leads, opt-ins, same thing. people who open Canvas ads, watch videos, right? I'm retargeting all of that. Well, now what I have is literally right now today, 25 different videos that are running for $1 a day. So 25 videos running for $1 a day to that warm audience over the last 30 days. So what happens is when someone watches for 30 cents, that 8-minute video top of funnel, people are like, what does $1 a day do? Well, Facebook's going to find the right person at the right time who's going to be typically on their mobile phone, and people are going to watch these 10-minute videos 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I have all this content that otherwise was sitting in a recording vault somewhere that people are now consuming. So now they're having 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions with me at 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes a piece. And then whenever I have my next offer, that's where I'm retargeting is that group, because they become indoctrinated. They get free trainings they don't have to opt into. But as they're consuming it, they're getting to know me. They're getting bullet points. Otherwise, like I said, that stuff would have sat on the in storage, and it's just $1 a day. It's really quite a fascinating strategy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the thing is too, though, is that, I mean, what you're achieving with that is so much more than that. There's so much sort of brand loyalty, brand awareness. There's all of these, it's so funny. This is the one kind of thing that I find funny. I mean, I you know, being somebody who's been in this industry for years, and back in the days when it was just sort of print, TV, radio, and we really had no metrics to talk about. It was just sort of like reach and impressions. And so, you know, we could maybe get a sense of the data, but it was still kind of a bit of a guesswork. But the thing is that, you know, back then, you know, nobody questioned that advertising worked, right? For sure. Like if you weren't advertising, you know, for sure, if you were not advertising, nobody knew you existed. But
I know I got to spend 50 grand a month. I just don't know what it does.
I don't know. Yeah, they don't know what it does. Exactly. But they knew that it worked on some level. Today, though, the thing is, it's kind of funny how addicted people are to, like, you know, okay, well, what is your return on investment? And sometimes I think people get a little overly hung up on those conversion metrics, and they forget about all of those sort of the intangible value of people and relationships and trust building. Like, that's the thing, especially again, going back to LinkedIn, which is a very different platform for me. Like, I use Facebook for advertising for sure, and I target, right? Whereas on LinkedIn, I'm just offering value, which is kind of what you're talking about there when you're just like, okay, hey, I'm going to take up all these seminars and I'm going to break them up. You're giving away free information, free value to people. That has an intangible value that you can't necessarily put a thumb on. So when people say, like, well, what's your return on your investment in LinkedIn? And I said, well, to be honest, on LinkedIn, it's very hard for me to actually track all of that. I know I'm getting more business from it. I know that sometimes it's not the person directly coming to me. Sometimes it's like, hey, somebody got to know me. Through the videos, they recommended me to somebody else. And furthermore, again, they're just getting used to seeing my face, and they're used to saying, okay, well, this guy, it builds up credibility. It builds up authority. Like, there's all of these other values that people aren't factoring in when you're doing something like that. And you are also talking about the return on ad spend and how affordable it is, which is also actually, you know, $1 a day is pretty damn like man, we couldn't do that back. We never could do that.
Yeah, you could. So that's interesting you say that, because it's one of the things I love to do is I love to argue math and facts with clients, where essentially they're like, you know, hey, I'm going to get this billboard. Great. As soon as you take the billboard down, nobody's going to remember you. Like, I can quantify and retarget people. So not only can I show you the numbers of what happened, we can figure out if it worked or it didn't work, but we can redirect people because we're retargeting. The interesting thing is I would tell people, typically I'm looking for 100 clicks on a website. So 100 clicks, $1 a click, that's $100, or $50 if it's, you know, 50 cents a click. But if you're testing different ads and different website combinations, $50, $100, thousands of dollars, $10,000, now it can get really expensive to test. But with this video consumption stuff, what ends up happening is literally you can spend $1 a day, look at 10 days, and you can look at 20 different videos and be like, oh, well, that one got more consumption, that one got less consumption. And literally someone would come to me 18 months ago and say, Curt, I tested 4 ads for $10 each. I spent $40. I would roll my eyes, say something sarcastic, curse underneath my breath, and tell them to leave. Now today, I can look at these different videos for literally a total of $10 over 10 days, easily see the relevance score, why, if people are consuming them, are they clicking back, cut that ad budget. So now I'm literally building my bottom of funnel first, right? They go to my sales page. What's that experience? I build the middle of the funnel with these dollar a day ads and this other content consumption. And then literally I can turn off and on top of funnel because I already have all the relationships built and everything else. I think people spend way too much money top of funnel because they test all this different stuff. They trim 90% of the fat, and that 90% of fat is still being retargeted on people's websites like pig shit, rolling around in pig shit. And all they're doing is they're like, my retargeting isn't working. Facebook isn't working. They have no middle of funnel, no bottom of funnel, no relationship building. And they're like, why will people not buy on for 10% off? But I'm just going to offer 20% off. I can only sell my products for 20% off. And I'm like, dude, it's not about price. You just got the wrong people in your wrong message.
No, and I you know, I've had a talk with somebody the other day about just how like discounting in general is just a bad strategy. Like I just don't think
it really is.
Really shouldn't be doing it.
Trading people to discount.
Yeah, and you're undervaluing your own product or service, and but even like like it's so funny that somebody would get like, oh geez, I spent $40. Why like, especially in the context, again, going back to the billboard, I love the billboard example, the analogy, because that's a, you know, again, a perfect sort of the classic one where it's like, again, back in the old days, we would say, okay, well, you know, so 30,000 people drive by this a day. So that's 30,000 impressions. And it's like, you know, now this is the beautiful thing. Facebook is like the little, like the beautiful thing where that billboard is perfectly dynamic. And it's like, okay, well, this car likes shoes. So poof, that's what that billboard is today. Oh, this person's into purses. Okay, now we're going to do purses. Now it's showing that ad to the right person, the stuff that you can do. And again, we're talking about $40. And what you're talking about too, about the fact that within a day or two or three, you can look at it and go like, oh, now I know I know that this person looked up at my billboard. This person did not, you know, nobody's looking at that one.
What I'm personally fascinated with is like literally, which I'll do like right after the call, right? You can take one of these things and within 10 minutes, shoot a 3-minute video, upload it, run it as an ad, test it for $40 over 4 days or whatever, and get some pretty good results. But I always like to compare this because I love learning about history because, especially in marketing, because it always has a tendency to repeat itself. And there's a lot of people, this is really important for people listening to understand, is they have these old belief systems, right? It's like old, antiquated, like, so like, Julian, if I was to come up to you, let's just say we took a time machine. When did you get started in marketing again?
Oh man, it's been a little over 20 years ago.
Okay. Let's say we took a time machine back literally 20 years ago to your 5th year in marketing, right? So you understand a little bit after 5 years, like you're kind of scratching the surface. So your first 5 years in marketing, where does that put you? At the end of that 5th year, like where does that, do you remember if you were to kind of look back in the time machine, where does that put you?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I remember. Well, first of all, that was the early days of websites. People were like, they'll have to convince people that they needed. They were like, why do I even need this? Like they didn't.
Perfect. Yeah. So what were you doing at that time?
So I was probably I was either around the time when I was like still at an agency, or around that time I then moved over and I was the special event coordinator for Ben & Jerry's ice cream in Canada.
Perfect. That transition right there. I'm excited about my business. Okay, I am super excited. I am selling this charger widget. I am super excited. And I come up to you and I'm like, Julian, back in the magic time machine, dude, I got $50 to test an idea. What's your first thought that pops into your head?
Yeah, sure. Sounds like a good deal.
Back then, what the hell would I spend $50 on to test an idea with?
Oh, yeah, nothing. Yeah, there's nothing you could test.
So I'm going to come to you and I'm going to say, no. My minimum budget is $1,000 to get proof of concept and run some ads for advertising. At that time, what could you do for $1,000?
Oh, geez, you could run some ads in the newspaper. Maybe.
Like once. Yeah.
Once.
Yeah. And people are like, and then here's the other thing, right? Let's say I came to you with $5,000. Are we scratching the surface of back then that we could start a decent ad campaign to sell my widget? Wow. Or are you talking about we need $20,000 to start?
You need 20. Yeah, you'd easily need the $20,000, man. Like, oh, the amount that you have to do, and you wouldn't get your results for months.
Thank you. My fascinating thing is when I talk to clients, they're like, Curt, it's been a week. We spent $100, and I'm just like,
yeah, I know.
About all this history, what the fuck are you talking about?
I know. I mean, I have this conversation all the time with people. It's like, you haven't spent. We're just like, it's amazing, and it's. I mean, it is true, like in the sense that in today, a week is a long time. Now it is. It never was before though. But I mean, at that point in time, you've got info. You've got info that you just never had.
You would throw money at stuff where it's just like, well, I know if I spent 20 grand a month for 6 months, I don't know if 5 grand of the 20 grand works, or we'll just throw money at it. And then today people are like, I'm scared to advertise because I've heard these stories of people put in $1 and make 100 on Facebook. That is possible, but it's also like winning the lottery. But man, we've come so far in history. I think people get spoiled really quick and selfish with technology.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, back then, like you'd spend 50 grand and for 1 month edition of a magazine, you would have one ad. And then you complete your split test by the next month having this ad. And now we'll see. And then we can only look at the bottom line of whether business went up. And you can't really necessarily say, okay, well, was it really attributed to this ad? You know, it was, you know, a shot in the dark. It was throwing shit at a wall. You couldn't, it was.
And today, Facebook can tell within a 28-day time window if someone just looked, didn't click, and then went and bought later, they can attribute it. So you can say, oh, hey, this video I ran 15 days ago attributed to this other ad, and then they bought. Again, like you said, you don't know if they decided in the magazine that this was the 12th time that they've seen that ad because they saw a billboard and blah, blah, blah. But here, you can draw a direct line of sight, and again, you can test this stuff out for under $100. Technology is amazing if people know how to use it.
Absolutely. And I think the other point that you raise there too is just like, I can shoot a video with your phone. I mean, that's certainly the observation that I've made, is that the more like polished and neatly done your video is, the less well it does. The one where it's just you with your phone, you know, and you don't do anything fancy. And again, it goes back to that sort of level of authenticity. People aren't interested in that. And I think it's, you know, it's twofold. The older generation is just wary of it. They've been seeing these perfectly polished ads for years and years and years, and their bullshit detectors go up right away. And then certainly for the younger generation, they've got that. I think they also, they're much more, you know, younger generation is much more likely, for example, to drink a microbrewery craft beer than they are a big brand Labatt's or something like that. And I think it's for multiple reasons. One is that they look at that corporation and they see that its sole mission is to raise the value of its stock. And two, because they probably watched a video of the brewmaster himself talking about why he made that beer and conveying his passion for it. And I think that's a big factor of it. And this is why, again, we were talking before the show, you know, about like how I love the training, because this is the thing, is like, really, actually, I do believe that nobody can be as good a brand ambassador for your product or service as you. You're the one who's passionate about it. And if you convey your values and your mission and what you're all about, that's what people respond to. People respond to people. And you and I have spoken, you know, a lot of people in our group have spoken about that, right? How people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. Well, somebody who's genuinely passionate about what they do, that gets conveyed, and you can't bullshit. And so I think that's where immediately, again, that little video, here I am, guys, I'm really excited to talk about this because, you know, and, you know, then you believe it, you'll know it. And if it's fake and if it's scripted, people kind of see right through it.
You know, it's interesting. One of the big ahas that I had is a friend of mine. He hosts this party here in Austin called the Internet Marketing Party. And he brings this guy from Orabrush. There's a huge case study around how there's, you know, less than 1% of the internet to sell the Orabrush. And this guy's made millions. He's one of the top advertisers on YouTube. But the interesting thing is what ends up happening is no matter how strange the object is, there's a collection of people out there that are really quite interested in the concept if you're targeting people right. So what I find that's very interesting is the trends today that, like you mentioned, franchises here in the United States, like restaurant franchises, they're just not really working as much anymore. People are really going to more local, and they want that more direct match. Like, for example, this is just my personal experience, my personal belief. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, 2,500 people. I'd walk into the bank, know the vice president of the bank. We'd kind of sort of fill out a loan form. But the way that I got a loan when I was 16 years old is they'd write my dad a check, a blank check, and say, whatever car you buy for your kid, just go ahead and fill in the rest of the information. And it doesn't work like that today. Like, if you want a personal banker at one of the large banks here in, like, America, for example, like Bank of America, you have to have a certain checking account with blah, 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 blah. They literally encourage you or will charge you extra to come inside to talk to someone versus using the ATM. And I think what happens is people lose this sense of relationship with individuals where we just want to make business easier, easier. We're literally like, you walk into McDonald's and literally it's like, well, this kind of sucks. Like, I'd like to see a smiling face, but I guess I'll just order from a kiosk. And what we're really finding more and more is people relate more to our stories. I mean, this is how we've connected for thousands of years. And people are like, should I go with the shorter copy? Should I go with the shorter story? Should I go with the one hook headline? No, I think you should just be, you like to say, I mean, authentic, but I think you just be a little bit more personable, tell some more stories, because people want to know, well, as I'm, like, this is being huge now, as I'm buying the iPhone, are they really using people in China and not paying a fair wage? That's now a huge deal for people. Before it used to be, can I get the cheapest product? Now people are really interested, when I spend my money, what's this going to, and who's leading the company? I think we have a revolution on us on how we deal and how we do business with each other.
I totally agree. I've spoken about it, I've written about it. Yeah, that I think there's this sort of movement of meaning. And that the earliest, like the early days of the web, it was all young. And then again, I think everybody was kind of using it in this sort of infantile way, right? It was a superficial presentation of self. And look at me, I'm always smiling. Here I am on my vacation. Here I am in front of a Lamborghini, kind of a thing. And people have also, and I blame, that's this, I'm, because like I always say, like, it's like, I'm in social marketing in part out of necessity. I've been in marketing all my life. Social media has transformed our industry. Yeah. I love it. I think it's amazing. There's so many amazing things we can talk to. You and I, here we are having, a long distance conversation for nothing, face to face. It is all amazing. But I also like to be honest about the things that I don't like about it, right? Like, I don't like that old sort of superficial presentation of stuff. I don't, because I blame that, for example, for the rise of depression and the rise of suicide rates in the United States. And part because I think what happens is that all these people, they see everybody else appearing as if they've got these happy, wonderful lives, and it doesn't match their internal experience. And so it kind of like brings them down. It almost makes them feel more isolated rather than more connected. And the other thing that I don't like is how the algorithms are constantly feeding you what you've looked at. So as a result, everybody's kind of living in these isolation tanks, right? Like it creates this kind of confirmation bias, so that's why I blame it in part for the sort of rise in polarization in our culture.
So Facebook's working on this, by the way. And one of the things that Zuckerberg has actually come out and publicly said, and he doesn't say much, when he says it's pretty interesting, is this came out about 6 months ago, that he expects people, Facebook average time to actually decrease. So not to get more shiny likes and shares. So people are seeing less likes and shares, but more authentic connection with human beings versus just companies and shiny objects. So everything that you just saw, there's scientists and brain scientists have been like, oh, that's a horrible thing to have happen. And what Zuckerberg's actually dialing the pendulum forward, changing the dial on, is deeper connections with people, less conversations, more superficial, to address exactly what you're just talking about.
Well, and I think it explains in part the rise of LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn still has a lot of catching up to do to Facebook, but I think that's where in part, I think they just looking at the trends and looking what people were doing there is that's where people were sort of and the other part of it is the fact that they introduced video. But through that video, again, people started to share authentic experiences. They started to share their vulnerabilities. One of the earliest really successful campaigns on LinkedIn was "Let's Get Honest." And somebody would say, okay, so this is like, I went through this, or this is how I have had to deal with my depression while working, for example. And and also, I guess, because it's a professional platform, you get a lot less of the sort of trolling and that kind of thing. So it became this very sort of supportive network, and people were very kind of, and so I see this huge rise going up there. They're still, like, again, they don't have the users, they don't have still in comparison, but it is sort of one of the starting points. And I think, again, in part, maybe Facebook is seeing that there's been a shift of that traffic, a shift of that time spent on their platform in comparison to LinkedIn. And so they're probably just, again, trying to catch up. But there is this, I agree, it's a revolution. There's this movement of meeting, and I think it's a good one, personally.
Yeah, it's interesting, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'm thankful every single morning that I get to wake up. I live in this place that overlooks the city. I look at this every single day, and like, I don't travel to go see clients unless I go to some events. I don't have to do meetings. People ask me, now that just reminds me, somebody messaged me literally on Wednesday, and they're like, Curt, I'm in town for a short amount of time. They're a brand new kind of sort of prospective client. And they're like, I'd love to get together and pick your brain and have coffee. And I don't know about you, but when someone tells me that, I literally think I could be doing a podcast, I could be working on other things, just the travel time there for a half an hour, the travel time back, the awkward meeting at first, the 45 minutes to maybe 90 minutes. I'm 3.5 hours invested into, nah, I'm at home, I'm making really quick transactions, I have great conversations with people, but it allows me to build much more, or a lot more relationships, a lot deeper than running around and having coffee 3 or 4 times a day. So I love to do business this way. I love to show people how to do business this way. And like you said, I mean, you've seen the whole transition over the last 20 years with the rise of social media. Now it's all about, hey, I know this thing may be manufactured in China, but I'm really interested. Who runs it? Who ships it? Who holds this stuff? What do you guys really believe in? Do you guys really have kids that are working in this? Like, are the people who are spending their dollars are getting much more wiser. They have a lot more choices. So instead of the greatest marketing hook, I want to tell better stories so I have longer term customers.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm obviously a big proponent too of, working smarter, not harder. So likewise, I definitely, want to, spend a lot of my time, what I can do here more efficiently. But that, on the flip side of that, what I do try to sort of get out like, once or twice a week, just so, sometimes there's just a qualitative difference in terms of that, face to face. There's something a little different between being able to look at people's, into the eyes of somebody else, shake their hand, whatever. So I do it just for the sake of variety and for, get myself out there, get a little fresh air, that kind of thing. It's really more for that sort of healthier balance, even though I hate the phrase, work-life balance. I think that's a total myth. BS, right? And Russell Brunson's talked about that. Actually, he's one of you, right? Because he's just like, it's all one thing, right? And that sort of work-life balance really implies that you got to take from one in order to give to the other. And it's like, no, it's all like, to me, it is all just work-life and play. It's all one big thing, and I'm having a good time. But yeah, there is a bit of like, okay, I want to get out a couple times. But if I've got meetings, if I have to go out, like this week has been a lot. Like I've done 3 events this week. And I'm like, I'm tapped out, and certainly sometimes I'm sitting at a meeting the other day, and I was just like, man, the amount that I could be getting done right now at home would be nice. So I hear you. I totally hear you. So what's it like, man? You got all these celebrities in your roster. That must be kind of fun. And
well, it is. I mean, at the end of the day, is sometimes we work with some of these people for years. Sometimes it's only just for a couple of months. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is just referrals. I speak at a lot of masterminds or private groups and stuff like that, where it's kind of like the who's who, and a lot of people just come in, like I said, through referrals. The interesting thing is what I like to tell people that I get fascinated with. My girlfriend hears these stories over and over and over on the other side of the door, which is I get to work with a lot of people who have a lot of history on the interweb, and that's where you get to learn some really big, interesting things. So I also get to understand what's kind of, they have like the back room, and then there's like the back room of the back room. So like when I'm in the audience and I'm listening to some of these speeches, I'm like, oh, I ran that. That's not the story. That's the story. That didn't happen. So it's interesting, but I also know the history of it. So when people are making changes, ideas about or they have ideas about their business, I can say, hey, I know so-and-so who had a huge business they were looking to make the same type of decision. Here's what they did. So let's compress time by someone who's put a lot of time, money, and effort into it. So that's what I love to do, is I love to find these kind of like celebrity clients that may or may not work. I develop a long-term relationship, but literally I'll go to conferences, lots of hugs, lots of collaboration, but I'm always picking up these little gold nuggets that we'll do an interview here. I'll work with another client. That's what I'm fascinated about. I love to see what's behind those doors.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, we all want to know what's behind those doors. And what is it like? So, I mean, is it because these people have businesses that they're trying to promote, or because I mean, I would imagine that they've got more, marketers coming up to them saying, hey, I want to use you as an influencer.
Nope.
What are they using? Why do they need what is it that they need?
That's the opportunity. So the thing is what happens is that there are some people who get started out and they're like, I'm going to hire all these social media people, right? And they have these big dreams, but they've never done it before. But there's also these people that are in this top echelon that like, it's kind of like, not to be sexist in any ways, but it's kind of like that really hot girl or that really hot guy where it's like, they never get asked out on a date and you're like, how? Because people just like nervous.
Intimidated by them. Yeah.
Right. So it ends up happening. Like I'm at this mastermind a couple of weeks ago and someone walks up to me, one of the world's top authorities in the paleo niche. Like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people follow them, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, Curt, I've heard your name and in lots of different masterminds and stuff. I'm like, man, I really appreciate it. And they literally are like this. It's almost like they're starting to tell a racist joke. What? I've never done retargeting. You have a $10,000 package that you sell 6 to 10 times a month. You just told me. How? Well, people see me on a podcast and then they go to my website. Then they may watch 1 or 2 or maybe 3 videos. You've never done retargeting on Google, YouTube, or Facebook. You ever run an ad? How big's your email list? 435,000. Why have you never done any of this? Well, I don't know. I haven't met the right person. You know, I really like videos. You record videos? Oh my goodness, I like to record a lot of videos. Now we get in this conversation, and literally a lot of the celebrity friends that I've had or people that I've got to work with, it's literally like, oh, I was in a mastermind, so-and-so recommended you. And I'm like, why me? And they're like, heard good things about you. Felt that I could trust you. There are a ton of people out there. I've talked with one of the co-founders of Digital Marketer, Perry Belcher. I've known those guys for years. And Perry will tell this all the time, is their event, Traffic and Conversion, will attract these big name companies now. And literally like Carnival Cruises, not saying that's an example, but like just to give you a talking about example, they're like, wow, how do we get more leads to our site? Move the opt-in above the fold. And Carnival Cruise is like, oh my God, that is the greatest thing ever. And for us as marketers, we're like, we learned that back in marketing elementary school, like so what we know is really this really scientific. So I'm fascinated, as I mentioned, with documentaries and my friend who's in the infomercial space, because they've made millions and millions of dollars over there, but they don't understand any of this geek speak that we're talking about to quantify data, quantify consumption. So I'm really interested as these two worlds are really coming together, because now we are bridging, you know, the past with the future that we can quantify this stuff in it.
Yeah. Pretty exciting stuff, man. Cool.
Yeah, so that's why most people don't run their own traffic.
Yeah. So you know, want to be respectful of your time. Here's to tell, you know, any kind of final big, you know, massive, beautiful gold nugget tips, tricks, strategies.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. I'll go from a top down. Most people start top of funnel instead of bottom of funnel. You know, bottom of funnel, like I said, landing on a landing page, figuring that out, testimonials. Most people don't work bottom of funnel or middle of funnel. They start with the top. And when you start with the top of funnel, all you're doing is split testing a bunch of stuff that's not going to work. 10% of it does, and that's what you scale. And then you start retargeting that. So think about your marketing first of your bottom of funnel, middle of funnel. The next thing is think about consumption more than you're thinking about clicks and click-through rate. I want you to think about this for a minute. This is a little counterintuitive, but Facebook big data says clicks and click-through rates, high click-through rates, don't have anything to do with brand recognition, brand awareness, purchase intent, or purchases. So that means that that means that literally people who click a lot are window shoppers, clickers. So when people are like, hey, I'm super excited, I got lots of clicks, sorry, wrong way to track. What you want to track is consumption, like videos. How long do people spend on my site? You want to be able to track people through the experience so you can tell some better stories. So don't look just for the clicks, look overall for consumption, because people typically don't buy with a click. They usually buy over time. Again, Facebook's quantified that as around 28 days, but there's lots of different products and services. The last thing that I'm going to tell you is this. Facebook is always changing. We're talking a lot about this inside of the mastermind group that we are at. There is no group of people that sit down and decide what is the terms of use, for example, of selling hemp products or selling XYZ products. Lots of people get their account shut down because it's not relevant and it violates the terms of use. But what are the exact terms of use? Well, it's all done by an algorithm. So what happens is at least every 30 days, I'm rereading the terms of use. The other thing is I'm really focusing on relevancy. The third thing, last thing is, if you are seeing a lot of account shutdowns, I almost guarantee that there's nothing in the middle of funnel that's talking about content, or bottom of funnel is pretty much a direct response ad of someone who's trying to make as much money in a short amount of time possible. So if you're finding account shutdowns or high click-through rates, because you're not having good engaging content. Other than that, Julian, thanks very much for having me. Like, I love what you're doing here, love the stories, and hopefully these stories here provided some content for your viewers and listeners in my professional dress today.
Yes, dude. Oh no, you have dropped all kinds of bombs. It's been amazing. I really appreciate you coming on the show. sharing your words of wisdom and experience. It has been outstanding. Thanks so much, man.
Absolutely, man. Have a great day. Take it easy.
I've got big